on Instagram, Sunday evening, pre-Christmas here in the UK. Good evening, good evening. Hi there to everyone across all the other platforms. It's fantastic to be here. It's Ask Mark Anything on another strange Sunday evening where we find ourselves basically in Southwest London or in the Southeast or across London. We find ourselves in Tier 4, which essentially means stay at home. So that's been quite a shock, I would almost say. It's certainly been a surprise, let's put it that way. And it's been a tough one for me personally. I actually put out a little post on my personal Facebook earlier, just to a few friends, just to say, you know, how I feel that I'm almost in a little period of like mourning almost. It's kind of, you know, it's like we had this Christmas planned and it wasn't going to be huge, but it was going to be something. It was something to hang on to. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like it's just taken away. I've got a special guest joining me this evening, and we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail. But what I would say is that in psychology, they have a whole thing about being mad, bad, sad, or glad. And those are like 4 human states. And I'm not like some positive Superman all the time. I mean, 90%, 95% of the time I am nowadays. But what I would say is that it just knocked me a little bit. And I believe, you know, the other 16 million people in London and the Southeast that it affected yesterday, I also believe that many of those people were feeling sad as well. And that's the post I put out and the reach that I got from a lot of people. So I know that people are affected by Boris's announcement yesterday. It definitely had a bit of a downer on me, so much so that I didn't do my DJ mix last night. Chris obviously wasn't allowed to come over, so we didn't do the DJ mix. But I might do one on Christmas Eve. So let's see how we go. Let's play more golf in the fresh air. Yes, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. So as I say, it was a bit disappointing, but we've got to bounce back. We've got to keep going. But one of the things that popped into my head was who motivates the motivator? Because ultimately, I do a lot of motivation. I do a lot of come on, guys, you know, get people moving, positive mental attitude. I know the effect of negative thinking and where it can lead you. And then I get something that makes me go, oh, you know, I don't feel great about this, you know. And so ultimately, that was a bit of a kick that, you know, that I got and many other people got. So I'm really pleased to say that I've actually got a special surprise guest joining me this evening. He's the man, he's the Lewis Senior, basically. He's the man that I interviewed on last Wednesday evening. And we've had such a huge reaction to Lewis, to Equilibria, to the e-colours that he talks about and that he's tool that he works with. And we were talking over the last few days, and Lewis has created a forward to Life Remixed. Which I'm absolutely over the moon with. Obviously, we've got Danny Ramplin's written some amazing words. We've got Kevin Green, who's also written some wonderful, wonderful words. And Lewis has joined in and is and has written a part 2 of the forward, which actually came through to me this morning. He's been reading it all weekend, and it came through to me this morning. It definitely lifted me up, and I think the importance of having a coach just goes to show that, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you can be the most positive man in the world, but you still need someone to give you a bit of a nudge or a bit of a push in the right direction. So who motivates the motivator? Let me introduce Lewis, because here he is. Lewis is going to come in and say hi to us. Hey, Lewis.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Sorry to hear your news, but we were already there in Spain. So, hey, yeah. It's better to be alive and well, with many more Christmases to celebrate in the future.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. I really do. We've got a couple of people just jumping in as well. Danielle says, great to see us. So thank you, Danielle. That's great to have you on board. And Mark as well. Mark says, music always motivates me. Yes, it does. It does indeed. And I did listen to a few records earlier that just got me a bit more buzzed up. And yeah, I will be doing another DJ mix on Christmas Eve, which I'm looking forward to. Come on, we have got to lift our spirits. But certainly it gave me a little knock yesterday. But as you say, you know, it's better to be safe at the moment. It's better to make sure that we don't lose any more people ultimately. And you know, it's only a couple of weeks, and then we'll see what happens. And 2021 is going to be brighter for all of us, right, Lewis?
I think so, for sure. Well, it can't be, can it?
It can't be.
Well, maybe it could. But let's stay with the fact that, you know, there's a lot of effort going in, and you know, it's really easy to knock the governments in all the country, but nobody's ever been in this situation before, and so they're going on. You know, I fully agree. When people are going on the science, you really don't have much choice. And I tell you what, I was listening to a really interesting program on the radio this morning called Talk Radio, which I've, you know, your book that you'll be on there. And one of the things they were talking about in the UK, compared to a lot of other countries, when all of this started, they said 72% of the people believed in what was going on and the government was doing the right thing. And most people in the UK are somewhat rule followers. They're now down to about 34% of the people believe what the government's saying, but they're still following the rules, which is a heck of a lot better than a lot of other countries.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I've been fortunate to hardly be locked down this year myself because of work and other things that have been going on, of course. But I've always followed the rules, and I'm not about to flout them. At the end of the day, if that's what needs to be done, then that's what needs to be done. So, but I do, one of my things about leadership, as you know, I'm a fellow at the ILM. I've done lots of leadership qualifications as well as going through Equilibrium and E-Colors material, which we'll talk about later. But one of the things for me is leadership is about under promise and over deliver, because you're going to make people feel better that way. If you under promise at a certain level and you keep people, okay, this is where we're going to be, this is what we're going to do, and then you over deliver to such a point that they are like, wow, this is amazing, thank you so much, they feel good, they feel grateful. For me, that's a good thing to do with leadership. Under promise and over deliver, and do something special that people see. Don't do it the other way around and promise people, like we've had promised for 4 weeks. They promised November lockdown to save Christmas. They promised XYZ for us to all be, and then all of a sudden, boom, no, sorry, you can't go and see any of your family, you've got to stay home. Now, I appreciate what you say about the government, of course I do. But on that leadership piece, I wonder what you think about that.
I think it's a very difficult situation. Like I say, it's moving. I'm not a great supporter one way or the other. I live in Spain, and most people here can't even tell you who the prime minister is right now. And the king, the ex-king, he went off to Abu Dhabi because So at the end of the day, every place has their problems. But I do think that at the end of the day, let's talk about it on a slightly different perspective. Budget. A lot of companies and organizations are going through the budgets right now. If you in other words, you under promise. In other words, you put such a fat amount into your budget, and then you over deliver because you got in under budget. That's not healthy either. At the end of the day, I think people are just going to have to take the things to another level of tolerance and appreciate that if everybody manages their own reactions and responds rather than actually reacts to all of this, I think ultimately we'll be a lot better off. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. And I certainly wasn't. Losing my shit about it, but I was kind of like, come on, it's just. Yeah. Anyway, it was a surprise for us all and disappointing for all of us, particularly in London and the Southeast. Hey, we're still here. We've got to look at the positives. The positives are we've got 2 weeks, relatively clear diaries. We can put good things out into the world. We can do positives. And talking about that, you've kindly finished your forward to Life Remixed. And you're one of the very few people who's actually read the whole book.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, tell us how you got on.
Well, first of all, I want to tell you, we talked about the book. When did you send it to me? Friday evening. I actually sat down by Friday night before I went to bed. I read about 2.5 chapters, and then I made my mind up yesterday. I was going to read the whole thing because I know you're meeting the publisher on Monday, and it was fascinating, Mark. I got to tell you, I was really, really impressed. I mean, I don't know if you want me to share what I wrote or not, but I've got it here because let me share it, and I know we can edit it if you like, but I'll just read it as it came out. So when Mark asked me if I would write one of the forwards for Life Remixed, I immediately said yes, but first I wanted to read the book. Having been through it from cover to cover, I now have a further appreciation of just what an interesting and challenging life he has lived at the time of writing. He's still young, just turned 50. Now, I'm going to be 70 next year, so to me, you're quite young, okay? Because that's relative as well. As you read Life Remixed, depending on when you came into the world, you'll be able to relate to various aspects of his experiences, because in reality, we are all born imperfect. There's always work to be done, regardless of gender, race, age, creed, religion, heritage, or skin color. And thanks to such a diverse lifestyle described in the book, you will find many answers to your unanswered questions. And I just want to qualify that, Mark. I didn't write this down, but I will tell you, one of the things, and I do have it as a question for you actually when we get round to it, is so many people will benefit from this book from different perspectives. Be it somebody who was there during your time, who was born before your time, who now has a kid that's going through addiction. I mean, it just goes on. The beauty of Mark's story is that not only is he blessed with a level of vulnerability that he's prepared to share with the world, but through an incredible amount of self-awareness, personal development, and determination, he's taken some intentional actions and made a great life for himself, his lovely wife, Emma, his family members, business partners, and colleagues. And all power to you for doing that.
Thank you.
It's great to see that it hasn't stopped there as he works at expanding his network daily. Consequently, and I'm seeing this every day, more and more people are being impacted by his positivity and dedication to helping others learn from his own trials, tribulations, learnings, and strategies for success. For context, allow me to share that I'd already been working in oil and gas for 30 years. In 2004, three of us and myself founded a coaching organization based on personality diversity called Equilibria. Primarily, we were focused on safety and productivity in high-risk industries by raising levels of understanding that the personality of each individual can significantly impact how they react or respond in any given moment. Our foundational self-team awareness tool is called the E-Colors. And it's because of that, our work that I got to meet Mark nearly 10 years ago. Mark had already started it, which again, now I've got a much better picture of the timeline, as you can imagine. Mark had already started his development continuum by the time we met. I flew into London Heathrow. I think we met at Nero's coffee shop the first time from the US, where I have several clients, and we met for the first time face to face. He was already working at the airport, so it was interesting to hear some of his story today, which you'll get to read in the ensuing chapters. So let me stop here for a minute and just say, I really like the way you've laid the book out, Mark, because it's very easy to follow. You know, some people kind of start halfway through the story and it's impossible to pick up what's going on. But I like the way you've gone back and build on everything that you've done along the way. It became apparent to me very quickly that Mark was someone who was determined to make some significant strides in his life. And with the type of personality he had, it wouldn't be a stretch for him. As we know, we wanted you to become an Equilibria team member at the time. Unfortunately, there was a dip in the oil price, which impacted our activity, and we didn't want to have him join us without having guaranteed work opportunities for him. However, the connection was made, and as Mark will describe in one of his chapters, and you do describe that very well, he began to understand that a lot of his choices actually were completely in line with what we would describe as a personality style with yellow-blue tendencies. At the time, right? Went on to red, but at the time. People with these propensities, and as I wrote this down, Mark, I mean, this is you to a T, right? That people with these propensities are best described as relating socializers, typically focused on people rather than tasks, have a strong desire to help others, like to be liked, even better, loved, which again comes out a lot in the book. Emotionally driven, doesn't like confrontation and struggle to say no for fear of upsetting one. Actually, several people whose E-colors are yellow-blue describe themselves as party animals. If you knew Mark back in the day, does any of these behaviors sound like him?
Let's ask people watching, was I a party animal? I think we might get some response to that. But yeah, keep going.
And again, I'm going off the book because I didn't know you in those there, but you describe it so well, Mark. Okay, fortunately, we kept in touch with Mark, even attempting to leverage his newfound knowledge within a company he later went to work for, which is when both Laura and David, actually, my two work with us, also with Equilibria, got to know Mark. From then on, he built his knowledge and mental muscles utilizing our online learning system, not only from a safety perspective, but also applications for leadership, teamwork, effective communication, self-management. Over the years, we continued to keep in touch. And again, I was thinking about this afternoon, Mark, particularly as we kept seeing you on social media with your frequent visits to the hospital for all the knee operations. Then this year, we reached out to Mark as we developed further actionable intelligence with a more robust personality diversity report and a coaching follow-up program, which we thought would be very, very interesting, both for him and his business. We've now signed an update agreement with him and look forward to a long and fruitful relationship. I have nothing but admiration and appreciation for Mark. and believe that his first book, Life Remixed, will be yet another significant milestone in a journey of resilience and determination to better himself and those around him. He brings joy on most days, even when Boris is having a bad day. I've lost myself now, hold on. He brings joy and happiness to virtually everyone who comes into his sphere of influence. And I told you this the other day, Mark. In my mind, I have dubbed him the London Lighthouse, keeping us all off the rocks while providing a clear vision for the future. Read on, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. I'm willing to change anything, but to me, that's you in a nutshell.
Well, yeah. I mean, thank you, Lewis. I mean, you've absolutely nailed that. You know, for the fact you've actually read the book, you know, cover to cover, you've done that in 2 days, you know, to get the feedback from an author such as yourself, you know, you had your own book out, you understand the process, you know what it takes to have that feedback from you. That, you know, that just means a lot to me. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to Emma. It means a lot to us that that someone like you would read the book and be so into it that you decided that you wanted to, you know, be a part of it. We talked about it a lot, and then it was kind of like, look, let's just do this. You know, will you write the forward, please? And off you went. And to deliver it within 48 hours, and you know, you're talking from the heart. You know, you are a leader. You've done. If people don't understand this, I put this on a post the other day. You've done more than most in this world. You've done more than most to keep people safe and to up productivity in high risk environments. Than well, you've done more than most, basically. You've done more than just about anyone I know, certainly. And so for you to read it and then give me that feedback, honestly, Lewis, that's beautiful, and thank you. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I'm looking forward to 2021. Bring it on, eh? But so tell me, questions. I feel you might have a few questions for me.
I do actually, but I just want to back up for a moment because, you know, one of the beauties, Mark, of what I think just radiates from you is this desire for people to be happy and to actually get something out of everything that you bring to the table. So, you know, we did this interview the other night, and I want to tell you, I told you on Thursday, I had people reach out to me. One lady reached out to me, went to kindergarten with me, and that's quite a few years ago, right? There were literally people from all over the world, literally. A lot of people saw that. I don't know if you're able to see how many people actually watch all of the different feeds, but it's a remarkable amount of people who come back to me. Again, people I used to work with, people who worked for the clients that we worked with, which really brought home something very clear to me. And I wrote this down because I want to make sure I told you about this. You know, I have a friend of mine in Mississippi. Whenever we used to go out on the road together to different rigs, he used to say, Lewis, you know what we're doing today? And I say, what's that? He said, we're making memories. And one of the things that's come out of all of this that you're doing, you never know the memories that you're making for people. And I will tell you that this book you've written provides a lot of memories for a lot of people. So what I got out of the book as I read through it, and actually there's just enough green in me that if I see a comma in the wrong place or a space, you got all that feedback today as well.
Emma picked up on that. She was like, oh, that's impressive for a top colour yellow. She was like, impressive, yeah.
A little bit of OCD or something, I don't know. But what it does make me do is read every word. And that was something I was determined to do rather than just scan through it. And what I really loved about it, like I said, is A, the way you've laid it out, Mark, and B, how it kind of all makes sense for people. And like I mentioned before, depending on their age and the demographic, I think you're going to see some interesting results. So I'm going to, if you don't mind, I would like to ask you a couple of questions. Obviously, I don't want to give too much away because I realize I've read the book now. You want people to read the book, right?
There's a couple of things before we do that. Yeah, Emma says no spoilers. She's on there, so no.
Yeah, that occurred to me as well.
That's fine. But I just another. I've just got a couple of nice other comments that are coming in here from Danielle, obviously saying greetings. You're in Spain. Kev over in Canada saying that's a brilliant insight. We've got shouts from Mark and my friend Pete has jumped on here as well, and he just said something really nice. I just want to say, if you share if you don't mind, Lewis. You have shown us to be resilient and to think of ways to ensure we get through this and come out stronger. I hope you realize how much your energy and constant enthusiasm brings joy during those days when we can easily become distracted. Keep smiling, brother, from Pete. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate that, mate. Lewis is the same for me. Lewis is a guy that's inspired me over the years. And that's why I'm so happy to have him here, because people inspiring other people, that's what it's about. Even when I had a little moment of sadness earlier, Lewis was just swooped in and just lifted me up. So anyway, crack on, Lewis. Go on.
So again, no spoilers, I promise you, but I think one thing that really jumped out to me almost immediately is when you describe your mission. And I think that is worth probably mentioning. So for those that don't know, how would you describe your mission?
Well, my mission is actually my purpose. I stumbled across it when I was younger. I was a DJ kind of like just because I love music, and that was it. And for me, the mission now, once I could broaden it out, was just to bring joy to as many people as possible. And using music was one way of doing it. But certainly now I came up with a life of purpose. The purpose of life is a life of purpose. So I came up with my purpose. And your purpose, by the way, is not something that is written in law for you somewhere or anything like that. You just decide what it is. So you decide and you go, hold on a minute, what gets me going? What's my buzz? What's good for me? And I just put down to bring joy, to bring knowledge, to inspire and create. And it's up there on the wall. And as long as I'm doing those things, this call, for instance, Christine Randall's just jumped in and says we've both inspired Ben in a big way, and has a domino effect. Yeah, it's like ripples in a pond. Excuse me. It's like ripples in a pond. The more positive I am, the majority of the time, and the more that I can bring joy to other people, that ripples out into the pond. Emma's happier, the families are happier, and that's just my purpose now. And I can use music to do that, and I still do. But this book and the words that I've come up with, 14 chapters of it, that can do the same thing.
So just tell us the mission one more time.
To bring joy, knowledge, inspire, and create.
Okay, so your book does that. I just wanted to know that. From my perspective, all of that took place. And that's why I thought it was quite important to recognize that. Maybe just share why you call the book Life Remix, because again, I thought that was really insightful.
Well, I had to describe what a remix is, because to me and everyone else that I know in my little world, as far as I'm concerned, everyone knows what a remix is. You literally get all the parts for a track. So I would get the vocals, and then I'd get the pianos, and then I'd get the bass, and then I'd get the keys. I'd get everything, the kick drum and all the drums. I'd get everything. And then what I would do is and I did this for 20 years as a producer and a remixer. I literally just picked parts out of tracks that I really liked and then morphed it into something new and called it the Mark Wilkinson remix. So, it had a sound, it was uplifting, it was positive, it was happy. But I used elements from other people's music. There might only be one bar, you might use 4 beats, and you might just sample that little bit and then just loop that up and make it into something that people would dance to. But the point is that remix thing, it just worked so well when we started to look deeply at what was going on in my life. Because bear in mind, Lewis, I get asked this a lot, right? You were a health and safety manager, but you came from technical and working in oil and gas and on the tools, I believe, even in some ways. So you've gone through that process. I didn't do that. I was a DJ, I was playing records, and people say to me, how have you gone from being a DJ, for 20 years of your life of music and everything? How have you gone from that to a health and safety manager in construction, and now multiple business owner, and all these things you've got going on, and now an author? How have you done this? And it's the Life Remix. It's about keeping the bits that you like from, because I wasn't a horrible little shit, I mean, I was all right, I wasn't a terrible man, but I was certainly misguided in some areas. And so I just kept the bits of me that were important, the bits that I liked, and the bits like my personality, if you like, or I kept my character essentially, and I just tweaked different parts of it and turned myself basically over a period of the last 15 years into someone I can really be happy and comfortable with, where I wasn't when I was younger.
Excellent. So knowing that you know a lot about the e-colors now, from an e-color perspective, let's just take the red, the red, green, yellow, and blue. What do you think will appeal to each one of them for the book?
Well, certainly with the reds are doers, and there's a lot of actions. isn't there? There's a lot of action as you go through the book. It's not a passive book that you're just going to sit there and read and put down and put on the like shelf development and put it on the shelf and forget about it. I hope, like many personal development books that I've read that have actually like motivated me and got me going, I put a little exercises in the whole way through. As I started to go through my changes, I've mapped it out for people and said, right, okay, so if this is what you want, then go for it and tell me what you want, you know, and then let's see how we're going to get there. So from the action perspective, there's plenty of action to be had from reading and being a part of the book, right? I think the yellows, the socializers, such as yourself, Lewis, and myself, and a lot of people that I've met recently, they'll relate to the different parts of the journey. They'll relate to something in there, either the music, which is relatable, or potentially the pain or the disease or something like that. You know, that could struggle with that, the relationships, the financial challenges, everything else that's gone through there. Yellows will be able to understand something in there that will connect with them, I believe. The greens, I think they're very much logical thinkers. So it's about strategy. I think greens, you know, top color greens would relate or get to grips with all the information that I picked up and all the learning. It wasn't like, you know, I never picked up a book, read the book, put it down and forgot about it. I picked up the book, I read it, I highlighted bits all the way through different books, and then I went back to them at a later date, or I didn't take anyone's word for anything. I went out and I just tested it out. So I read the books, I got the information in, I got the knowledge, and then I went out in the world and, you know, took some action. And if it worked, which guess what, you know, nearly every time it did, because it's well practiced down to thousands of years, it's just written in different forms. It worked. And when it worked, I was like, right, I'm going to keep doing that then, aren't I? So, you know, so that was important. And then I think the blues, top color blues, they're supporters, you know, they will support it. I think they'll be willing me to succeed. And ultimately, you know, Life Remix would only have come out if it was a success story. It's basically unable to walk to running 4 marathons, bankrupt to financial freedom. And those things, those are the real big things. And I think blues they'll empathize and support that. So I believe that, you know, dare I say, it's something for everyone. But the point is that, you know, I hope that it's a story that connects with a lot of people.
And I fully endorse that, actually. That's what occurred to me. I did make a note for myself here again. So which demographic of the population are you aiming to be your audience?
Great question. Great question, because marketing people will tell me that I must have an absolute demographic. It must, and yes, there must be a core support. So my personal feeling is there'll be people that will relate to the book from my music background that are similar age to me, or 10 years above, or even 5 years below. So, you know, maybe 40s to 60 or whatever. There's a group there of people that will have experienced a lot. You know, there was hundreds of thousands, if not more, people doing what I was doing every single weekend from 1988 to like 2003, you know. So there'll be a lot of people that will understand all over the UK. They used to call it like the Balearic network, where people just knew each other in every single area. And then it went worldwide, and that's how I ended up in 65 countries, because I was going here, there, and everywhere, because people knew my record or a record that I'd made or been a part of, and they booked me to go and play there. So there'll be people that will identify with that. However, I also believe there'll be people that will want to understand the success story and the coaching opportunities, because you know, at the end of each chapter we put coaching opportunities, remix opportunities we call them. But the point is that, you know, people will identify with that. And then you very kindly pointed out something recently that is very important to me as well. I'd love to be able to help younger people potentially with addictive issues, because I've been there, and I know how hard it is. And I also know how bad it can get. And I think that's important to be able to relate to some people that may be struggling.
You know, there's a couple of things. Again, Mark, I really kind of understood some things that had been going through my mind, maybe even for a few years, that became very clear to me when I was reading the book, actually. And you know, in fact, I wrote it down for myself. Is one of the things I think this book's going to do. It will stop people judging on what they believe is right and wrong. And you know, so for example, when I was a kid, you know, I think I smoked one joint when I was about 16. Didn't like it and never bothered again, actually. But the idea of taking some of the stuff that you did take was completely out of left field, right? But today, that's a different world. And you know, it's actually been bothering me a little bit as I kind of, you think at the beginning of COVID, if you look back on what was on Netflix, 50% of the programs were about cocaine.
Yeah.
Selling it, making it, shipping it, whatever, you know. And so it's kind of in your face the way cigarettes used to be advertised everywhere until people began to understand what was going on. So you've got to imagine, to a degree, it's probably harder to resist today than ever, I would think. So I do have a question for you, Mark. And again, no spoilers.
Go for it.
If you had your time all over again, would you do anything differently?
You're good with these questions, aren't you? I did say you could ask me anything, and I did say go for it. It's an interesting question, and I'm not sure I can give a definitive answer. And it's not a cop out, because I wouldn't change anything, because otherwise I wouldn't be the man I am today. And I wouldn't have the experiences to fall back on. I wouldn't be able to write this book and help, I hope, a lot of people. If it's all ifs and buts, Lewis, isn't it? It's all ifs and buts. At the end of the day, if I could go back to being 20 with the knowledge and information I have now and start over again at 20, I'd be a multi-millionaire by the time I was 50. Because of the amount of value and the amount of understanding and assets and all the stuff that I talk about in the book as well, you know, all the things I could do to help and change. You know, if I could go back and talk to my 20-year-old self, I'd say to him, you want to be a DJ? Brilliant. Great stuff. You love music? Brilliant. Great stuff. Go for it. But sort out assets and things that pay you money even while you're sleeping, and get things moving in other directions so that you're not just living hand to mouth and you're at the beck and call of, you know, essentially, you know, the club scene. And you know, but I never quite nailed that, to be honest.
So, but there will be people listening to this, and this is one of the reasons I want to kind of just pull that string a bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So if you had understood your personality propensities and that of your mum and your brother back then, do you think you'd have had a better relationship?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And listen, I'm not just saying that because you've written part of the foreword to my book. I'm going to say right here, right now, that the e-color system has helped me connect with my mum and my brother completely differently, and also with my wife in such a positive way. You know, Equilibrium and the e-colors, and the particularly the premium report we've gone through recently, but even the basic report and the feedback and the, you know, just understanding your strengths and potential limiters. If I'd have understood that about my family back then, it would have been totally different. But I found them. I'm yellow, so I'm all like big picture, bounce around, come on, let's go, socialize, DJ, all this kind of stuff. My mum and my brother are very much blue green, and Emma's green blue. But the point is that my mum and my brother, I always found them to be just so different to me. They're just so different. You know, I used to joke that, you know, perhaps I belong to the milkman or something. I don't know. But the point is that they were so different to me. And obviously my dad died when I was young, so I didn't really know him very well. I was 17, 18 when he died, and I never really knew my dad. So not as a man, you know. So yeah, I think that if someone had put e-colors in front of me and asked me to do a simple 15-minute personal diversity indicator, as you've got on equilibrium.com, I think that feedback would have come out and would have actually like made a huge difference to me. And I think I know where you're going with this, because I've been yellow blue for the last 10 years, and we're going to talk a little about addiction and addictive tendencies now, right? But I've literally just done the PDI again for about the 4th time or the 5th time in the last 10 years. And I've literally just tipped 1% into yellow red. And my belief is because of the changes I've made in my life, and also the way that I run multiple businesses now, I need to be a bit more decisive, a bit more doer, you know, than just the yellow blue. But carry on, please. Yeah.
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head. So it's a managed behavior, right? And I think that's brilliant. Now, I did actually, this whole thing about addiction, actually, ever since Wednesday when we had our last discussion, it's been banging around in my head quite a bit, for, if you don't mind, for a couple of reasons, Mark, I just want to share. Yeah. So as I mentioned the other night, we spent a lot of time working in residential treatment centers, and there was a couple of things that started to show up. Wherever we work in education, typically they have a cohort of e-color champions, people that want to take things a little bit further. In each of the 9 residential treatment centers, when I went in there, I would only meet the champions. If people didn't want, and they said, meet the champions, there'll be 20 or 30 of them, and spend a couple of hours with them. Of the 9 residential treatment centers, I would say well over 90% were yellow, blue, blue, yellow, yellow, red. And so, and again, I also realized that those e-colors like to be e-color champions. So it doesn't mean there weren't other people there of other e-colors who just didn't come into the sessions. But one of the things that started to occur to me was, if you go back to your own e-colors, this is why I think it's so important from what you're saying in the book as well. So I do have a couple of questions, and don't think too long about the answer, because I think this is important. When you were younger, when you were yellow, blue, and I know you describe it well in the book, why did you take that first, whatever, be it ecstasy or whatever? Could you have said no? Could you have just said, no, I don't want to be in that? Or was it that?
I don't know, actually. That's a great question. I mean, I almost want to say there was a bit of peer pressure, or also, I've got a great thing at proximity is power, right? At the end of the day, if you've got close proximity to people, then you can start to make a difference, and connections can happen, circle of influence, all the stuff you talk about in your book at the end of the day. But that also works the other way as well, because I was in the thick of hundreds of thousands of kids out at 18 years of age dancing all night. Yeah, here we go, and I'm standing in the thick of it, and I'm getting tired at midnight, and they're cracking on, and I'm like, well, that looks like fun. So there was a lot of moments where I didn't. I mean, I was out clubbing for probably 6 months or more, maybe even a little bit longer, before I ever tried that. But once I tried it, I think I describe it in the book, and there is a disclaimer, by the way. Of course, there's a disclaimer which I hope you really kind of got your head around, which was that it's not big, it's not clever, and it was just of the time, of the moment. I can make excuses and say I was young, or whatever. All the background of my little boy story and growing up was basically to kind of show the overview of the situation I was in, and how I was just looking for an escape. I was looking for freedom. I was looking to get away and just escape however best I could. And then yeah. So could I have said no? I did for a while, but I kind of gave in the end and went, I'll just try it then.
Okay, so I want to go back to this discussion we had the other night around personal intervention and the ability to say no. And what really got to me, frankly, when I started thinking about suicide, the residential treatment centers we worked in, once in a while, with all the will in the world, they would lose somebody to suicide. And most of the time, it was what they called accidental suicide. Right. Because people would be just taking anything they could to stop whatever was going on in the brain. And actually, this is something for anybody who's a parent out there. I just want to share this. One particular young lady who I was very fond of, she was about 15, 16 years old. She'd gone through whatever the program was, and several years after she'd finished, it was supposed to be okay. I was in Houston, and she called me from Alabama on a Wednesday and said, Lewis, I really need some help. I need to talk to you. So I said, well, I'm actually working tomorrow, but I'll fly up to Alabama on Saturday, and I'll spend the day with you. I phoned a father who owned a radio station actually in Houston, and I said, look, your daughter just reached out to me. Are you not connected with her? Oh, I've kind of given up on her. She's gone her own way as well. She's your daughter. Are you not going to do something about it? So I've done everything I can. So I called her the next night, and I couldn't even understand what she was saying. She was just all over the place. I got a call the following afternoon when I was in a meeting, found dead in bed. And then her father wrote to me and said, oh, we're going to do a big memorial. I said, too late. You had an opportunity, back at the time. So again, Mark, I know you are keen to be able to do something around this whole addiction thing. like I mentioned on Wednesday, I'm all in with that. And having read the way that you finally realized what was going on with you, there's a lot of people could benefit from that story. And that's one of the reasons I really hope people will read your book, which is why I asked about the demographic, because I think parents should read the book. I think people who love music should read the book. And hopefully you'll get to a lot of present, past, and would-be addicts as well. That would be my hope for you.
I just love to help. You know, I mean, my yellow is massive socializer. I love parties. I love music. My blue and my red are almost identical at 24-25%. And so that's my empathy and my action and my doing. And you know, that empathy, that blue part of my personality, I just love to help. You know, and if I can help people, I love to bring joy with music. You know, I want to bring joy to people that have a happy, healthy, wealthy life, you know, and all they've got to do is read Life Remixed and then take action. You know, they're just getting there. People say knowledge is power. It's not really, you know, knowledge. You can read all the books you want. I know lots of people that read books, put them on the shelf and never do anything. You know, it's the application of the knowledge that's the power. So you have to read it. You have to try it out for yourself. And then you have to damn well get on with it. And I'm so motivated to bring that joy to the world, and because I bring joy to other people, Lewis, it brings joy to me. Simple. Yeah. What you give out is what you get back. So
that actually comes to another question. And I found myself even drinking more water since I read your book. Can you tell us a little bit about listening to your body as well as listening to your mind?
Yeah, well, every pain, any pain that you're feeling mentally or physically has a message. Absolutely has a message. And you need to listen. So my body started complaining when I was about 25, 26. I started to get real bad stomach cramps and pains. And they were debilitating to the point where I'd be walking along from record. I'd go to the record shops in Soho. I'd be carrying bags of records home to get back to the trainer, and I'd be walking along, and I'd literally be like, oh God, and I'd stand and like lean against the wall and be like, oh, you know, and I'd have to go and find somewhere to sit down. If I was in the studio, I'd be cramped up on the sofa of the studio, you know, in like a little ball, because the pain in my stomach was so bad. But it would pass. So it was generally all right in the morning. It was generally mid-afternoon. It just got me for some reason. But I wasn't listening. It wasn't bad enough for me to listen. And then that continued on. I started to reach out and I started to do more and more and more. But it took the collapse. It took the physical, like, hit the floor. No other choice but to listen. No other choice but to be like, you know, right, shit, I've actually got to like listen to my body, because he stopped working completely. It stopped working to the fact that I can't even walk. And that was powerful. But what I didn't understand was that all of the ups and downs, emotional roller coasters, physical, mental pain, you know, stresses, alcohol, drugs, all the other crazy crap that I got up to, you know, distracting myself with multiple girlfriends and everything else. It was, you know, it was just chaotic. And I just wasn't listening. And there's a really important bit in the book that says that a lesson is repeated until it is learned. And you may have had that with yourself, Lewis, with the fact that, you know, I mean, you know, people that didn't tune, I mean, a lot of people did watch on Wednesday, but people that didn't watch on Wednesday, you had your own almost like sort of near-death experience. Which leads me actually nicely into the fact I talk a lot about a dis-ease and two words, you know, putting a hyphen in dis-ease. And that actually came from The Secret, you know, and that Bob Proctor, when he said a dis-ease, and it just, light bulb, I went, oh yeah. So, you know, can you relate to that? I mean, because, you know, you were working so hard, worldwide, week in, week out, that you collapsed, right? I mean, that must have been a dis-ease, right?
No, absolutely it was. That's what, again, caught my attention, which is why I want to bring it up, because it's interesting, because the way you describe it is listen to your body and your mind. So there were lots of people telling me it was going to happen, and I was not listening. So I think the key for me is, ultimately, your body says, well, if you're not going to shut yourself down, I am. and put the brakes on, like you said the other night. And that's exactly what happened to me. And from reading your book, it sounds very much like the same thing. The message may come to in different ways, but I would imagine if you talk to most people who've been something like we've been through, they'll tell you the same thing.
Yeah, I think so. And as you know, a lot of, I mean, it depends. It could be any kind of pain. I say a lot. There's a lot of millionaires and multimillionaires that have been bankrupt in their 30s, and the pain of that experience makes them go, no, come on, dust yourself off, go again, do something better, do something different this time, learn from it and go again. And I think with health, I think with wealth, I think with marriage, I think with everything, But yeah, unfortunately, sometimes I believe it does take a catastrophic moment for you to really listen.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, again, I'm trying to keep out the spoilers here now, but I maybe. So a couple more things. So, because I do think this is fantastic, especially this time of the year, the benefits of setting lifetime goals.
Well, purpose, vision, and goals. I've got some younger clients I've got some younger people that they really struggle with the whole purpose thing. They can't, like, it's too much almost for their mind at that moment. They're like, I can't get it. I'm like, okay, fine, don't worry about that. Let's move back to goals and then the vision. Because if we can set goals, even if they're small goals every 3 months, you can do so much in 90 days. It'll blow your mind. In 90 days, you can make huge changes in your life that will put you on a trajectory to the lifetime goals. Now, the best example that I can use really is with my own mother, because me and my mum used to clash quite a lot when we were younger. We've since gone through a whole process. There's a lot of stuff in the book, Lewis, as you've read. We've gone through a lot, and we've come together so much in the last few years. And I said to my mum, because I knew how I ran the marathon and how I've got financially free and how I've done all this stuff. It's because I set goals. I had a purpose and I got the vision, but I set the goals. So I said to my mum, she's 75, and I said to my mum a few years ago, I said, Mum, listen, I didn't want to call it a bucket list, although we kind of did, but I said, like, Mum, because she'd given up everything for her boys. I said, Mum, listen, I said, I want you to set some goals now. Stop like looking after everyone else. My mum's classic, like looking after everyone, Lewis. I think you said that about your mum. And my mum's classic, looking after everyone else, but not really looking after herself half the time. It's probably where I got some of that from as well, by the way. But the point is, I said to her, look, Mum, set some goals now. And she put down a top 10 of goals. One of them was we live not far from Wimbledon tennis. Never been to Wimbledon. She's never been there. I said to her, put that down on the list, right? She's been to four of the 5 last years of Wimbledon tennis. She got a ticket for the women's final. I mean, we set the goal and we just got about doing it. And the next thing you know, she's sitting in the Wimbledon's final, having like strawberries and cream and having a great time. So, and then we did this thing with, she wanted to go to Egypt. She said, I want to ride a camel around the pyramids. I went, all right, Mum, fine. It's all in the book. We got her there last October, when we could travel still. We got her there like a year and a bit ago. And there's a picture of her like on a camel, like riding around the pyramids. And it was just beautiful. It was so, so beautiful to give that experience to my mother. But if you set the goal, see, my mum's never set goals up to this point. Her only goal was to have children and look after them. And, it's only in the last few years I've got her setting goals. And now her life is like, so please, start now. Whatever age you are, start now, set some goals, and let's get moving.
Well, I tell you, it certainly got me thinking. And in fact, I've spent some of the afternoon doing just that.
Good.
So I just want one more thing from the book. I love what you say at the end about, and I like the way you've quoted different songs. Took me a while to catch on what was going on, but I believe in miracles. Can you tell us what your 4 miracles were?
Well, the four miracles, really. Well, I'm not sure if it's 4 or not. You might have to help me, but definitely one of them was unable to walk for 18 months, and then getting myself better, and then training myself in 4 months to go from unable to run. I'm a big guy, right? Trying to get me to run anywhere wasn't happening. And one of my friends said to me, "Do you want to do London Marathon? It's got a space, raise money for charity." I was like, "Yeah, like you said, I'm all in." So I went for that, and I've trained myself from unable to run at all in 4 months to do 4 hours and 39 minutes at the London Marathon. And I'm pretty pleased with that, to be honest. So that was a big miracle. And that around that time, I was having the idea for this book, and there's a lot of strategies in there about how I got there, and a lot of a lot of proof about the fact that I visualized myself across the finish line, and that's how I got there. So that was pretty miraculous. The other miracles in my life, certainly getting married, and actually having a successful relationship after all the silly things I did when I was younger, to actually be at a point where I can be loving and be in a solid relationship and give and receive love in a good way. It's a miracle to me every day, and I'm massively grateful for it. And the last one I would say is, so it's three. You might have to remind me of the fourth one. But the third one is bankrupt to financially free as I live today. I've used your strategies. I've used the colours. I've used Kevin Green and KGW strategies. I've worked on myself to be better and better and better at everything that I'm doing, so that I will look after my clients and build something really, really big and important. And like I said, I just turned 50. The next 10 years of my life are going to be fabulous because of the strategies and everything that I'm doing. So bankrupt to financially free is a beauty, and I love helping people. I love helping Kevin's clients and KGW clients because they're amazing. I love working with all of my clients. I've got so many clients across health, safety, construction, everywhere now, it's happy days. So those are the miracles for me. Was there another one I've missed?
Well, they'll have to read the book to find out.
Very good. Very good, very good. I love it, mate. I love it. So listen, you've been so supportive. I mean, even in the last 6 weeks, just stepping up and just going through the process we've gone through, it's really it's been amazing. And you've introduced me to some amazing people across the world. Obviously, Lynn, Equilibrium in Sports, Jeff, Equilibrium in Healthcare. E-colours in both of those, so we're going to be talking to them in the coming weeks as well about their strategies and their life stories as well, because it seems that you've got a great deal of people around you. I mean, you're 20 years ahead of me, but you've got a great deal of people around you that have been positively impacted by your story, and obviously then taken that themselves, but they've obviously been through their own challenges as well. And the other one that I'm loving, by the way, is Garrick Jones. What a dude Garrick Jones is. If you don't know who Garrick Jones is, you need to go and look him up. He's running for general manager of the Houston Texans. I remember the Houston Oilers, funnily enough, and I had to look up and find out what the Houston Oilers are a franchise. They've gone somewhere else. They're the Tennessee Titans now, and the Houston Texans are the new team in the area, in the city. So Garrick's running for that, and he's an amazing guy.
Yeah, he really is. Again, we got introduced to him. Ben McMahon, friend of ours, he introduced a few years ago, always had a passion for American football. I went to meet Garrick, and this is like a 300-pound African, big guy. And he's got a heart of gold. He's off the chart, yellow-red. Yeah. And it's just like yourself. He's got his fingers in multiple pies. But one of the things that really stood out for me was, NFL actually stands for not for long. The average lifespan, they say, of a player is 3.2 years, if they're lucky. And so they get an inordinate amount of money in a very short space of time, typically the second season. And, there are people who last a long time, obviously, but the majority of them don't. But everything that got them into the NFL has been around how fast they can run, how hard they can hit, and all the rest of it, right? Not much learned at college other than on the field. And so they get all this money. They're surrounded by family members, typically, who don't have anywhere near the financial savvy that you need to have with that kind of money. And a lot of them it goes horribly wrong. So what Garrick wanted to do a few years ago is set up what they call the SDFL, which was the State Development League. And the idea was, you can imagine, for everybody who gets drafted, there's a heck of a lot of people who don't get drafted. What do? They still need to maintain the fitness. They still need to be able to play at a high level. But once they're out of college, there's no way to do that. So he wanted to have this kind of system where people who didn't make the draft but were really good players, and if somebody lost a player or injured or whatever, they could cut in from the group that he had. And the idea was that these people would play one Saturday. The next Saturday, they would get trained on a lot of the things that you're talking about: entrepreneurship, financial wisdom, etc., etc. And he loved the e-colours so much that was the third thing they would learn, was about our side of the house, if you like. And that's the relationship we formed. So his commitment to us is, if he goes into the Texans, we'll be walking right behind him. Nice. And I'm really hoping, I know you and I joke about Mourinho going into Tottenham, what they did on, you know, all or nothing. But I will tell you, I'm really hoping that Garrett gets the job at the Texans and they actually follow him in from day one, because he will turn that place upside down. No doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I can't wait to bring him into an interview, Lewis.
It'll be good for you to interview because it's another perspective as well. And you can also, you know, we're actually running these diversity inclusion webinars all the time, and it's him and Lynn. And with some of the things that have been going on in the States recently, you know, around Black Lives Matter and everything, it's a huge issue and something that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'll definitely join one of those. You know, you're fascinating people that you're introducing me to, and I'm massively grateful. But most of all, I'm grateful to you, Lewis. You know, you've been so supportive in the last few weeks, and 2021 is going to be a really interesting year for all of us. For you know, Danny Ramplin, yourself, Kevin Green, Life Remixed. You know, everything that we're working on. We're all got the right intentions. We just like want to bring that value to other people, and you know, you've clearly been doing that over a long period of time in high risk environments, and now you're obviously spreading that out into healthcare, sports, and possibly even Houston Texans. So no, it's wonderful, mate. And obviously, you know, if anyone wants any more information on e-colors or Equilibria, they can reach out to you or me. Obviously, we're both here to help with that. So yeah, I'm just going to sort of round it up here. Unless have you got any final questions or anything? Otherwise, I'm gonna round it up.
No, I'm just going to encourage you to. I know it's difficult with what's gone on with COVID, but use the time wisely over Christmas to at least regenerate. I know your mind's still going to be going, but take a bit. We all need to take a bit of a rest and just get ready for next year, like you say, because there's, you know, it too will pass, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely, it will pass. And I'm gonna do a couple of DJ mixes. I'm gonna do some more work on the book. I'm just gonna be like edging it forward, ready for the February release. Of course, you can pre-order at markwilkinsonofficial.com/shop if you want a signed copy. So people are more than welcome to do that and pre-order. We're getting quite a lot of pre-orders in already, which is really nice and really supportive. And I really appreciate the efforts that people are going to that they want to read this and then hopefully take some of those strategies into their own lives. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting here in the UK. We've got basically a full lockdown pretty much, apart from a bit of exercise over the coming weeks. So we'll make the best of it. Tomorrow morning, I'll be back for a bit of Monday motivation at 8 a.m. Tuesday night, Life Remix samples at 7:30 p.m. We're looking at chapter 6. Wednesday night, I've got Lorraine Hahn. You might have seen that, Lewis. We've got Lorraine Hahn from CNN. And CNBC. She's in interview with me on Wednesday evening. She's in Hong Kong, so we've got some amazing stuff from her. She's interviewed Henry Kissinger, Tiger Woods, Elton John, and then she's chatting with me. It rolls off the tongue, Lewis. And then Christmas Eve on Thursday evening, I'm going to do that DJ mix on Christmas Eve for everyone. So I just round it up and say, look, Lewis, thanks again, mate. You know, people can watch this video and follow up, of course, as well. And I will send you the file as usual. But just want to say big love to you, all the family. Particularly, I love your wife. You've that quote about "Get up, you idiot." There's nothing wrong with you when you. That's just. I can imagine Emma saying something like that to me, to be honest. But I love that. That's great. And yeah, I just want to say big love to all of you guys over there. Thanks again, and I'm looking forward to us working together in 2021.
Same here. Thank you.
You're a gentleman, mate.
Thank you.